Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you're located. This is Cindy from CPSE, and I'd like to welcome you to today's sponsored webinar, Applying Location Intelligence to the Accreditation Process with Esri. Presenting today from Esri is Mike Cox, Director of Fire and EMS Solutions. Mike is responsible for advocating how fire and EMS agencies leverage geospatial information and technology to achieve their response and recovery goals. He is retired from the Henrico County Fire Department in Virginia as a Deputy Chief after 27 years. Joining Mike today is Renee Bernstein, Esri's Public Safety Solution Engineer. Renee has over 12 years of GIS experience. She holds a master's degree in environmental studies focused on environmental technology from Virginia Commonwealth University. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat window in the GoToWebinar panel on your screen. We are recording this webinar, and you'll receive an email later today or early tomorrow morning with a link to the recording so you can share it with others. At the end of the webinar, please contact Esri directly for additional information, and be sure to visit their booth at the 2022 Excellence Conference, March 22nd through 25th at the Caribe Royale Convention Center in Orlando, Florida. Thank you for attending, and now Mike will begin the webinar.
Thank you, Cindy. And of course, we're proud to support CPSE and all departments that are involved in the accreditation process. And I want to thank the attendees for spending a few minutes with us today. And also thanks to Renee. Renee, you want to say hi to everybody?
Good afternoon, everyone.
That was a little practice with the mute button there, Renee. Thank you. The housekeeping issues, Cindy already addressed a couple, so please use that question chat capability in the GoToWebinar dashboard. And also there'll be several QR codes throughout the presentation that'll take you directly to some of the resources that we're going to describe and allow you to access and understand where those resources come from. But today we're going to discuss those very things. So resources that are available to you to support the accreditation process and your preparedness, response, and recovery operations, capabilities that you may already have access to, and solutions that we provide that can directly support your self-assessment and community-wide risk assessment as you move through the accreditation process. We'll talk about how to develop those community risk assessments, standard of cover, and provide those resources that'll help you tell your story. So you tell your story through that self-assessment and accreditation process to your own personnel internally, certainly with your chain of command, right, our elected officials and appointed officials, and to the public, which is very important, to have them be able to understand, you know, what our operation is, where our gaps in service are, what our needs are, and how we're supporting them as a community to help build those safe communities. So we do that a lot through the use of GIS. Obviously, several technologies can apply, but GIS can be a foundation for how you collect, analyze, and then present data for decision support and take action. And so GIS is often referred to, you know, as the map, but it's so much more than that, because you can enrich data and bring in various data sets from disparate sources to really provide these visual products to help you tell your story. So you can bring together data like imagery, CAD, computer-aided dispatch, certainly records management system, RMS data, or demographic data. And you have access to incredibly detailed, incredibly powerful demographic data that can allow you to understand not just, you know, what's happening and what is the risk and where is it happening, but who is it happening to, which is of course incredibly important. We can assess performance, you know, with verified data, and present our issues, present our obstacles with verified data, and not use anecdotal evidence or gut decisions. And GIS is helping organizations develop plans that target vulnerabilities and manage the community's overall resilience. And we want to point to a couple of sources and provide some guidance on how we engage these technologies, and specifically GIS. One is the 21st Century Fire and Emergency Services Whitepaper. It was a pretty unique initiative partnering between CPSE and ICMA, International City County Management Association. And it identifies 8 critical issues associated with, you know, your needs operationally, your strategies, and how we serve our communities. And the first is critical issue C, I want to address robust use of data, because the fire service generates a great deal of data, but are we leveraging that data to help us make those decisions, to help us identify where we have gaps in service, and to help us identify those at-risk populations? So we can establish systems, you know, to ensure collection and management of quality data and we have to be able to use that data effectively. So, every time that engine sets a brake in front of a house fire, we're collecting that data point. So we generate a lot of data locally and a lot of data that we have access to through GIS and through some of the resources we're going to describe today. And there's a QR code that will take you directly to that white paper where you can review some of the issues. So we have to be able to, to cultivate that data-driven culture so that all of our members understand how important data is. We have to be able to operationalize that data. We have to be able to understand how it helps us tell that story during budgetary processes and provide resources to the responders so we can better serve our communities. So those outcome-based performance measurement systems and be able to support the health and welfare of the community is incredibly important. And the next critical issue addressed in the white paper is critical issue G, and that's technology adoption. So, it addresses the speed of change and how much technology changes, year to year, and certainly understanding the difference of even a couple of decades ago, what the fire service was addressing through the use of data versus today. So much more capability to bring that data together, whether it's through mobile applications in the field or data sources such as the FEMA and the federal government, Vision 2020 for community risk reduction, data sources and the like. And it's important to be able to bring those data sets together and understand how your community is being impacted, understand how our current response model is addressing those impacts, and then understand exactly where we can improve as we move through our self-assessment and to be able to tell that story. Another great source from CFAI is the information technology specifications for the accreditation model. And that's available in the learning library. And again, that QR code will take you directly to this document. But this document addresses specifically what geospatial data sets and what geospatial analysis might be required as you move through that accreditation process. So planning zones, population densities, transportation, infrastructure, identifying risk in the community is one of many that's listed in that document, but a great guidance on how you should address those capabilities to bring in these geospatial data sets to help you perform that CRA or that self-assessment, again, as you move through that accreditation process. And how do we take this data and these processes and these visual products and have an impact? Obviously, as we go through our self-assessment and can testify to our capabilities or readiness to be accredited, we can also operationalize this data and use it in the day-to-day operations to address public information and community risk reduction, applying location analytics to preparedness to be able to assess that risk and to be able to mitigate impacts that we've identified in emerging threats through the use of data and that kind of analysis. And we'll speak specifically to some community risk analysis in just a moment. So how do we support you? How can you be supported through the use of GIS, and what resources do you have directly from Esri and our staff to help you through that accreditation process? Well, the first issue I think is you have to understand the footprint of Esri and how many public safety agencies are engaged in the use of the platform. So all federal agencies domestically in the United States and over 80% of local and state government agencies are already on the platform. Worldwide, it's over 40% of public safety agencies have access to the platform through their government agencies. So even though you may not be using GIS, you may not be addressing it in your accreditation process, if you're with a city or county government, you may already have access to it. You may already have an account, and you can start to deploy these capabilities based on what you already have in-house. We also provide support through our Living Atlas, which is thousands and thousands of data sets. So things you can bring into your visual products, again, to help that decision-making process, but things like live feeds, traffic, weather, obviously tropical storms, and identifying risk through earthquake issues or wildland-urban interface. It's an enormous amount of data that you can access through ArcGIS Online, base maps, imagery, and thousands of layers that you already have direct access to. An additional capability or resource for you is our solutions page. So our ArcGIS solutions page provides off-the-shelf solutions. Again, if you have an account, you already have access to this. There's no additional cost. You can download the solutions and start adding your data and begin using them today, literally in minutes. Many are able to be deployed through ArcGIS Online, so you don't even need a desktop software to start leveraging these solutions. Many of the solutions apply directly to the accreditation process, but there are also solutions for operations. There's a great deal of solutions on the emergency management side. So I encourage you just to look through that because it could provide ideas. These are repeatable, successful workflows that other agencies have used that we see as an example or a resource for other agencies due to their repeatability and ease of use. So some of the applications that you'll see quite often, particularly in today's presentation and throughout our accreditation journey, include dashboards and story maps. So dashboards are our primary visual application to provide a view of the data to support decision making. If you've seen the COVID dashboard from Johns Hopkins University, that's the exact same technology we're discussing today. In addition to those kind of capabilities, we have our mobile applications. So one of the largest mobile application collection for field data collection. And it allows you to do, prevention and community risk reduction activities in the field and have that data come back to you in near real time. So it's not a paper-driven process, and it's really part of the digital transformation of the fire service. So anything you're doing in the field on paper, whether it's a home safety survey or a fire inspection, company level business inspection, you can move these workflows to a digital format that truly builds efficiencies and obviously increases the speed of data collection, but it provides built-in analytics as well. So you can really start to understand what are the issues that the field resources are running into and helps you identify trends or gaps in service or need due to certain populations within the community, at-risk populations and the like. And nearly everything we do starts with risk assessment, and certainly when we talk about the accreditation process, one of the most important is that community-wide risk assessment. And typically, when we look at data for risk, we're pulling data from sources that are provided in a database format that you see here on the screen. But it's so much more effective to be able to evaluate and analyze that data with that geospatial context. So again, the database view tells us a lot of information. It tells us we had fires, it tells us we had fire loss, and it can identify trends, at least in numbers of instances or occurrences. But if we look at that data in a geospatial context, like in this dashboard view here on your screen, you can start to pick out patterns geospatially. So not only what's happening, but where is it happening? And again, with that demographic capability that you have access to, who is it happening to, which is incredibly important. And then to be able to tell that story both internally for operational needs or to the elected officials or to the public that you're discussing. So you can easily do things like identify wildland-urban interface risk and start to enrich these risk areas with data from Living Atlas or ArcGIS Online. As an example, here's a risk evaluation for the wildland-urban interface and likelihood of wildland incidents. And then you can see in the individual planning zones there, or census tracts, you can start to identify, how many structures, what's the population, what's the dollar value available through things like your parcel layer, which is an incredibly important data source for you to do some of these evaluations. So again, these are capabilities you already have access to and can start to leverage through your risk assessment and understanding how we need to deploy resources to serve your community. And so looking at the typical risk assessment process, we start to identify what data sets do we need. So, risk data, developing that community profile. So again, that demographic and population data, certainly response data and identifying target hazards or high risk infrastructure within your community and your planning zones. So some great resources already prepared that help you do these analysis include things like the National Risk Index. So a FEMA data set that drills down to the county level that addresses 12 or more natural hazards and can identify what is your highest risk for a given county or region. So that QR code there will take you directly to that application. And you can also access these data sets, through their data hub, the FEMA data hub, and pull these layers directly into your visual products. So if you're localizing one of these views and you're working on your community risk assessment, this data is available to you directly to add to your dashboards or to your story maps. Another great tool here is the RAP tool, Resilience Analysis and Planning Tool, which addresses a lot of risk as well and what the hazard levels may be, but it brings in additional information on infrastructure. So there's high-field data layers you can access through the Living Atlas that identify things like critical infrastructure. Where are my hospitals? Where are my nursing homes? Where are my schools? And provides data about number of beds licensed to individual medical care facilities. So you can really start to drill down and see where your highest risk is based on what the hazard is you're attempting to address. Another great source for risk assessment data or for risk assessment support is Vision 2020. As an example, they did this Discovery Data Hub, which takes inference data down to a county level and starts to do an assessment on risk based on incident type. So you see their fire incidents, EMS incidents, but it brings in demographic information as well. And it's really a great example of how you can integrate data to support your accreditation process. And again, make good decisions for those in the field and executive staff. Another capability and application that we like to talk about or like to demonstrate is our community analysts. And this really is a great way to understand what demographic data is available. So you can actually go down to a block by block level and start to generate these reports, infographics, things that you can export into other reporting requirements, and see them in a very usable manner, and be able to share that information with others. And it comes with built-in reporting and infographic capabilities like at-risk populations, and you can also develop your own if you're looking for specific data or specific demographics to generate these reports. But thinking about being able to take a polygon like a first due area or planning zone or an evacuation area, and to be able to quickly analyze that polygon, wherever that evacuation area or first due is, understand exactly who lives within that first due, right? Where is my at-risk population? How many households do not have a vehicle? If I'm doing public outreach and community risk reduction and public information activities, do I understand where maybe somebody's more likely to interact with a digital medium like social media, or there are areas in my city or county that I need to do pamphlets and paper handouts because that's the behaviors within that part of the community. And those are characteristics you can identify through the use of this kind of data in your map enrichment and through your analysis. A great solution we often like to talk about through our community risk assessment is our target hazard analysis solution. Again, available on that solutions page we talked about earlier. But this, again, is a great example of how powerful the data is that you have at your fingertips currently. So this solution takes the parcel layer or the real estate layer and does a hazard analysis on every single building footprint. So you can identify not just by occupancy type, but identify by the individual parcel, the individual property, what are the risk levels? A very high risk for firefighters and occupants, or very low risk, and everything in between. And you can see there it comes off the shelf with risk categories like occupancy type, life safety, fire flow requirements, economic impact, and more. There's a flexibility in how you can adjust it for your locality, and you can weight those scores or add characteristics to it that may generate a higher risk score for an individual occupancy. But again, you can do this regardless of how many buildings you may have in your locality, literally in a couple of hours. It does not require you sending out any crews to do walkthroughs or those kind of assessments. You have the data currently to run through this target hazard solution and identify individual risks for every individual structure. And that's a great example as well of how to operationalize some of this data. We see many agencies converting from a dispatch type based on simply occupancy. So, a single family is a single family and a commercial is a commercial. Well, in the accreditation process, as you do those job task analysis, if you're sending the same number of resources to a 5,000 square foot convenience store that you're sending to a 35,000 square foot big box store, really doesn't make sense, because obviously, the job requirements are going to be different for those different size occupancy types, or different required for fire flow needs, and the fact that it's such a large footprint, and maybe the value has an impact to life safety hazard. And the same with single family dwellings. You can actually do an analysis on every single family dwelling, and you may send more resources to the 5,000 square foot McMansion with no water supply that you send to the 800 square foot bungalow. And we've seen department after department implement this workflow and really improve the way they're getting the appropriate number of resources on that first alarm, on that initial dispatch, to provide better service to the customer, and see reductions in things like extension beyond room of origin, and reduction in extra alarms required to deal with that specific incident. The data collected through your agency or by your agency personnel is important as well. And we continue to see this digital transformation, where moving from paper workflows to field mobile applications, again, to get that data into a more efficient collection workflow, and also to have built-in analytics. So here's a great example from the Missouri Fire Marshal's Office. That QR code will take you right to the case study, where they've essentially moved all paper-driven permitting, inspections, and enforcement activities to a digital workflow through the use of Survey 123 and other field applications. The great story here was, they were using a paper-driven process, and they would have issues with customer service. Was one of the first examples they identified, because somebody would call and ask about, what code was addressed, or how to specifically address their code infraction, and somebody would have to go to a filing cabinet and find a fire inspection report, pull that out, call them back, then reference a code book. And they've got workflows set up that when they're in the occupancy performing the inspection, they can have the inspection application Survey 123 automatically email the occupant, collect a signature. That email can reference the appropriate code, and so the occupant can understand exactly what that infraction is and how to hopefully address it and mitigate the issue. So again, that digital transformation we're seeing more and more of, and speeding the collection of data in the field, which then is data, of course, that we can use to assess risk and understand what are the issues in our locality that we can address through our accreditation process and through the continued path to excellence. A great example of a community-wide risk assessment built pretty much exclusively in GIS is a recent one developed by Charlottesville Fire Department in Virginia, and Chief Joe Powers, many of you may know him. They were able to take basically all steps of the CRA, leveraging GIS to perform the analysis, whether it was incident response, demographics, and they were able to put it into, this is a story map. And so Renee is going to address some of this again, but I want to point out a couple of things quickly. You can see the community analyst infographics are built right into this. You can also see they did the neighborhood risk level. And so they didn't use a first due or a square mile. They actually did their risk assessment based on neighborhoods. And Chief Powers references it very well when he says, the analysis by first due is very relevant for our personnel and inside the fire department. But if I'm talking to the public, or if I'm talking to elected officials, they may not know what Engine 1's first due is, but they certainly know what the Rose Hill neighborhood is because it's part of their electoral district. So again, a great way to tell that story so that people outside of your agency can understand, what are our obstacles and what are our struggles and what resources we may need, and how are we supporting our community, not only loss, but how are we mitigating loss and preventing our community from being impacted by some of these hazards. We also see agencies using similar applications like story maps to coordinate and present things like strategic plans and an annual report. So here's a good example from our friends at South Metro, put together a wonderful report that again is publicly available, that you can review and understand exactly what their performance is, what are they meeting as far as their performance measures, and be able to again use that for presentations to elected officials or to the public. Another great tool we have is our hub. So the Esri hub allows you to engage the public and provide information for transparency, so they can access call data or access community risk reduction data, whatever it might be, but they can see the workload of the fire service, and they can understand what is my agency's impact to my community, and understand exactly what's occurring, and again, education or simple transparency to deliver your data and your work performance to the public or to elected officials. So those are some of the capabilities I wanted to cover, and I'm going to turn it over to Renee to actually demonstrate some of those capabilities. Renee?
Thank you, Mike. So I wanted to take a deeper dive into some of the things that Mike was mentioning in his examples on the slides. And I wanted to start by taking a look at the ArcGIS platform, beginning with ArcGIS Online. Mike mentioned, this is a great place that we can analyze our data, take a quick look at it without necessarily needing that desktop side of it. So here, what we're going to take a look at is within ArcGIS Online, I have my web map up. I am currently looking at fire stations in and around San Diego, and then I'm trying to propose a new fire station. So what you're seeing here is this larger point is my new proposed station. And as Mike mentioned, trying to help visualize decision support and get that message out there. Why is this a good location for a new station? Well, we can see there's kind of a gap in the central area where a proposed station is, that there's not currently a fire station. And one of the questions that always arise is, well, what would be a 4-minute drive time? So by having that proposed station, I can click on my Perform Analysis button and use my use proximity, and create a drive time area around that point. So I'm going to use my point here, my proposed fire station, and I'm going to change this from 5 minutes to 4 minutes. And I'm going to come down here and leave all the rest as is and run my analysis. Now, as this runs, this is going to create a polygon around my proposed station and tell me what that drive time of 4 minutes would be. Now, I could easily run this as well on the station to the south and to the north, because what we're looking to see is, are we going to overlap in that 4 minute drive time? Are they going to overlap? Are they going to meet up? Or is there still going to be a distance where it might be that it's a 6 minute drive time between any of those stations for them to reach the area? So we can see my drive time has been created, and this purple area is that 4 minute drive time. So if we ran a 4 minute drive time on this point right here, there's a likelihood that my 4 minutes may meet up right on this outer edge. However, for the one to the north, we may see that we might need to go a little further out. So this can help decide, is this the correct location for this proposed station, or should we be moving it a little to the north or into the west? So these are questions that we can take a look at while looking at this analysis. One of the other items that Mike mentioned in his slides are solutions. ArcGIS solutions provide you about an 80% solution, meaning it gives you all the tools you need to input your data and get it to that 100%. So what we're looking at is our new and improved fire incident dashboard solution. This is currently available on our solutions page, and you can go and bring this into your ArcGIS Online organization, and there is help documentation that will walk you through exactly how to implement your data and append it into the solution. So I've done that here with some RMS data I had. As you saw Mike mention this with the neighborhood risk assessment, this correlates with that. This is over Charlottesville, Virginia. And so we're taking a look at what we have. These are incidents that have occurred over a period of time from their RMS system. And I can do a bunch of different filters by station, by response zone, by specific company. I've also got down here responses by company. I can look at response by date. And then off to the right, we can take a look at our 90th percentile for these different features. So we're looking at our total response time, alarm handling, turnout, as well as travel time. So we can see that's been calculated for us in seconds. And then under each gauge, we see the NFPA standard. And we see what that is. So we can see where we are currently sitting in relation to that standard. And if I hit the arrow at the bottom, I can then take a closer look at these specific incidents. And we can take a look and see what those outliers are within. So within our total response time, I've got this one call that was an outlier that took 422 seconds. I might want to dig a little more into that incident and understand why that was an outlier. Was there, an issue with getting to it? Was there a traffic? Was there a road blockage, etc.? To better understand why this became an outlier. Or it also helps us to improve upon our calls. And I can also click on one of these and I can see just these 17 calls for engine 7 as well. So this is a quick look at one of our many solutions we offer for you. Now, one of the other items that Mike mentioned, which is a great resource, is our Community Analyst. Within Community Analyst, we can bring in data that we have within our organization and then look at it in a different way while enhancing it with other information. So what I'm going to do here is I am signed into my same organization that you saw with my proposed fire station, and I'm going to click on Add Data, and I'm going to use my web maps and layers, and I've already typed in fire stations, and that is looking at all of my content, and we can see here's my proposed station as well as all of my San Diego fire stations, and I'm going to add those in. Now that I have added these layers in, I want to click on my proposed station here, and I'm going to do very similar to what you saw me do with my drive time. I'm going to create a drive time right here in Community Analyst. But here I'm going to do it in a 4, 6, and 8 minute buffer. And then I'm going to apply this out, and it's going to create those for me. So as it's creating these buffers, it's going to allow me to take a deeper dive into what is going on in this community. What is the at-risk population? What are the number of businesses? It can even provide me information regarding languages spoken, which can help us in releasing information out to the community to see, not only am I going to give, provide it in English, possibly Spanish or another language that may be needed. And this can help us not only in, providing information on a daily basis to our community, but also when incidents occur. Mike mentioned wildfires and other incidents, that we need to get messages out to our community. So as we do this, we're going to provide this information out, and we're going to be able to get specific infographics. Just refresh this real quick. And it's going to allow us to, differentiate between the different 4 and 6 and 8 minute bands within my analysis as well. Forgive me, little internet glitch there. And we can then take a comparison as well. So we'll get this loaded back up. So while this is loading, I'm going to go on over and take a quicker look at that neighborhood risk assessment that Mike from Charlottesville, Virginia. As Mike mentioned, Chief Powers put this together to kind of get the information out not only to the citizens of Charlottesville, but to those on City Council, and help them understand what is going on within the neighborhoods. So, he's got the basic information regarding the city, about City Council, when those meetings are, but then, we can dive into the city profile, and he's looking at the risk of the city of Charlottesville as a whole, but then he off to the left shows that city planning zone. So these are what was created in Community Analysts. And then he broke that down, as Mike mentioned, into neighborhood risks. So within Charlottesville, there are a total of 19 different neighborhoods. And we can click on any one of these neighborhoods, and now I can go deeper dive into, in this case, Locust Grove, and I can get where is that located within the Charlottesville area, what is that neighborhood, and then I can go into their specific profile for that neighborhood. So then I can have that comparison between the city and then the neighborhood specific one. We also can take a look here, they took a look at incident responses and the concentration of cooking fires, so looking at hot zones. So he's done some analysis, vehicle crashes, responses to those. I found this one very interesting, elevator rescues. Something to remember, this is a university town. There are high rises around there, condos, apartment buildings. So this one I found very interesting, and that this was something that was had some hot spots. Not something I would think of on an everyday occurrence. So let's go right back into our community analyst here. And we're gonna run that analysis. So I'm gonna create my buffers as mentioned with my drive times at 4, 6, and 8. And I'm just gonna hit apply, and you will see it will create those buffers. And once I go into those buffers, I'm going to get this pop-up that says I can do reports, comparisons, or infographics. So those infographics that Mike was showing and that we just took a look at in the Charlottesville Risk Assessment Neighborhood Story Map, this is where they're coming from. So the first one that pops up is my key facts. This is going to give us the number of businesses, the education percentages, total population, households by income. And this is valuable information, but what's going to be more valuable for me is at-risk population. So by clicking on my list and changing this on the fly, I'm able to take a look at my 4-minute drive time, and we can see it's 4 minutes because it says right here as well up here on my dropdown that this is specifically for my 4-minute drive time. So what is it now telling me? So within that 4 minutes, I've got a little over 3,100 individuals whose population is 65 or older. I've got a little over 1,500 individuals, 1,500 households with disabilities. And something that we think about is, the number of households without vehicles. In the event that we need to have an evacuation, we need to think about how do we get to these individuals who don't have vehicles, and how do we provide that to get them out. Now, this is just for my 4-minute. I can drop this down and quickly switch over to my 6-minute and get that same information, as well as my 8-minute drive time. But what if I want to look at all these together, because that's something that comes up? By sliding this over, I can now take a look at this as a 4, 6, and 8-minute comparison. So we can drive down on our list here and take a look not only at the poverty and language, the population of businesses, because what we see is, depending on where we're looking in that 4, 6, or 8-minute drive time, our daytime population is going to vary from our normal population due to the number of businesses and bringing individuals in for work. We can also look at the population by age and languages spoken. And this is what we were talking about with getting that information back out to our communities. So that's a quick look at several of the different aspects that we provide within the ArcGIS platform to help you with your accreditation process and getting information out to the community. I also want to remind you that within your window, there is a handout that you're welcome to download to get information about some of our applications and some of the things that we mentioned and talked about today. And with that, I will hand it back to Mike.
Thank you, Renee, and great catch on the handout there in the GoToWebinar dashboard. So I just want to cover 1 or 2 more capabilities before we address some questions. And Renee, we do have a couple of questions you're going to have to jump back in on, so please don't leave. But this is our Insights application. So we've talked about a bunch of applications today: dashboards, story maps, that great demonstration of Community Analyst, which allows you to visualize that very, again, granular demographic data, and also export that into some pretty good reporting formats. One more I wanted to discuss really quick was our Insights application. So again, you can pull all the same data. If you've got mapping products and visual products, you can push it over into Insights and share that data seamlessly between these applications. But this allows you to have some pretty flexible analytic capability, and without having to do any coding. It's all drag and drop, and it's pretty amazing the way you can visualize some of these performance measures or any other need for analysis. So what this is CAD data or infers data from San Diego Fire Department. So it's about 150,000 calls for service, and it's addressing what maybe their unit hour utilization is, how busy is busy, along with several other issues, monitoring travel time, turnout time, total response time at a 90th percentile setting. But what I like about this, and what I wanted to show quickly, was many times when we evaluate this data, the approach is to look at unit operations, correct? So how busy is engine 1? What is their performance? But doing this in GIS, doing this in Insights allows you to look at it not only focused on an individual resource, but focused on the geography. So it could be an electoral district, it could be a first due district, and it's easy to do that. So if we look at this analysis, it has several data sets in it, and we can first look at an individual unit. So here's the busiest unit for this data set, engine 17, and when you click on engine 17, it filters the rest of these analyses by that individual unit. So this first box up top here is actually the first due districts, so you can see where 17 is doing most of their work. It filters out them on what call types they're running and the volume of those calls. And you can see things like time of day, day of the week, and on the map exactly where they're operating. But just as important, or depending on your audience, what may be more important is to understand what's being impacted by the neighborhood, by that first due, by that planning zone. So I can do the same kind of filter capability up here. So I can filter the first due for this individual unit. And you can see, again, what units are operating, who's doing the work in that first due, and how much. Again, the call load filtered by this geography or filtered by that location, and time of day, day of the week issues are addressed here. And again, completely flexible on how you set these analyses up. It's got a great export feature, so you can push it out into a PDF. You can push it out into a layer that you can share into other visual products. But also the two things that really help with completing the analysis is anytime one of these projects is put together, it records the steps you took to perform this analysis. So you can easily update data and add more data if you don't have a scripted feed doing it automatically for you. And you can share this model with other agencies or other people within your agency to be able to actually see how they do that kind of analysis. Oops, clicked it twice. Apologies there. So, but to show you how simple the how simple the analysis is, I can simply go over here and pick the data sets I want to evaluate. So if I want to do a day of the week, hour of the day analysis, I just click those two data sets and I drag them over onto the Insights application, and you'll see it starts to do that analysis now. So it's running through all the 150,000 plus calls for service, but it's putting it into a graph format that I don't want. So I can simply pick visualization type here, and I can develop a heat chart pretty quickly. So you can see here day of the week, time of the day, and again, that just ran through 150,000 calls for service pretty quickly. And I also wanted to show you a pretty impressive output from that target hazard analysis. This is the target hazard analysis performed by the Orland Fire District outside of Chicago, and Lieutenant Steve Rivera there, longtime champion of GIS use, both for accreditation and for operations. So if anybody needs his contact information, we can certainly get that to you. But what I want to make a note of here is, this application is focused on likely commercial target hazards, but you can see it can easily be applied to single family dwellings as well. So you can see obviously the red buildings are the highest hazards, and the underlying data will tell you why. It could be due to size or fire flow requirements or life hazard. But even if you get down on these individual single family dwelling streets and addresses, you can see in different hazard ratings for individual homes. So what can we do with that data? And I talked about using it in a CAD setting where you can dispatch by hazard level, but you can also use this data to focus, hey, where are we going to do home safety surveys? Because we don't need to go into a 2-year-old neighborhood that has less risk. We need to find those high risk areas where we can provide support to those customers that need them. Where are we going to do fire inspections? Because often we can't get into every occupancy every year. So maybe we inspect the high risk ones annually, and maybe the low risk we inspect every 3rd year, or we get into where they can do a self-reporting business inspection through the use of those technologies like Survey 123, where they can submit their own inspection report with photo evidence or photo documentation attached to that submission. And also, where are we going to plan for our responses based on where the highest risk is? So you can add demographic data to this to be able to focus on where we're going to add resources or try to mitigate whatever that risk is based on the overall hazard score. So last resource I wanted to provide you today before we get into questions is the our fire ebook. So there's a QR code there. You can click on that and download it. That gives an overview of not just accreditation, but operational issues, community risk reduction, and several other areas where GIS can be applied to support your mission, including accreditation and beyond. There's my contact information, so please make note of that, Mike_Cox@Esri.com. We referenced a few other personnel from other agencies today, including Joe Powers, and I just mentioned Steve Rivera. So if you need their contact information, they'd be glad to talk to you about any of the activities they did supporting their accreditation processes. So please, shoot me an email and I can make that connection for you. So Renee, I'm going to jump into a couple of questions. We've got a few minutes left, and I'll try to tag you or forward you the ones I think that I'm going to need your help with, because you're the smart one on this webinar. So Renee, this is something I certainly want your input on. What are the capabilities to support special districts that don't adhere to county, city, or census block boundaries? So if I've got a first due or just any kind of shape or polygon, is it possible to do the analysis we've demonstrated today on those kind of areas or those kind of identified needs?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, you are able to pull in a polygon based on whatever your boundaries are and can run the analysis off of that specific polygon.
So if you generate your first due boundaries, you can easily run that analysis based on that, and not what she was doing. You can manually draw in boundaries as well. You can draw the polygon. And also important to understand, you can do these map enrichment functions much like she showed in Community Analyst. A lot of that's capable right in the map as well. You just won't have that infographic kind of output and that reporting kind of output. There's a question about data collected around defendability of structures and communities. We do have a lot of capabilities around that wildland urban interface and defensible space development, including the ability to go out and do inspections and collect data, but also to evaluate tree cover and topography and things that impact the risk to individual structures based on, you know, a building footprint layer. So certainly, you know, you have my email address there, reach out for more information, because there's a lot of capabilities around that kind of analysis, and it's done pretty regularly. And we may be able to get you some resources that are already prepared for certain regions within the United States specifically, and some international as well. So Renee, is the analysis for the new station done in real time? And what kind of data is required for that analysis? So I'm assuming they're referring to that drive time analysis around a proposed new station location. Yes.
So what you saw me do is done in real time. It is done based on me clicking that point and running it. If I can actually share my screen real quick, I will show you a little more enhanced on that. So I went ahead and I've pulled up that drive time as we mentioned, and I went ahead and changed it to 6 minutes. And one of the questions, as you know, was proposed is also, you know, how is this being used? I can put in use live traffic and it will pull that out. So we can kind of, you know, we want to see what this is based on a specific day and conditions. And then I know in relation to that, so it is going to run it real time as you're sitting in front of it. And then to go along with that, I'm seeing a lot of questions as well in regards to credit usage, excuse me. And this does use credits. There is a small button right at the bottom here that I say show credits, and it will show you that it is using credits. And it is a very minimal amount for what you're running. However, remember, the more points you run, the more you will. So you can check that as you go through it. So yes, this is doing it in the real time as you're looking at it.
Okay, and before we jump from this screen here, Renee, let's be clear. Absolutely. So you can do this in 4 steps, literally 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. But we definitely can add, you know, real-time traffic, so like current or historical. Yep. So if you want to see what a drive time looks like, yep. If you want to see what a drive time looks like at 6 o'clock in the evening versus 2 o'clock in the morning, you can do that. But you can bring in actual historical traffic data to do those. Yeah. Analysis.
So I can look at this. You've got exactly, Mike. You nailed the. You hit it right on the head there. You've got it now. I can say from now until 4 hours from now, or I can say based on typical traffic patterns and say today's Wednesday, so maybe I want to say Friday at, you know, let's see, 4:15, and I can run it based on that as well.
Excellent. So, and the default there is it uses the road network. So it's not Correct. An analysis as the crow flies. I mean, and so within your GIS, you'll have speed limit values assigned to each road segment. So it would use that as a default, but it can also bring in this traffic data to run that as well.
Yeah, that's and you'll awesome. See Thanks. Here, there's on the bottom, that's a great point, Mike, you know, include reachable streets. There are times, you know, that streets are unavailable and things of that nature. And you can simply click on these little information eyes. If you ever don't understand what it's asking you, it will give you a more detailed description of what it's talking about.
Awesome. Okay, great. So another question, Renee, is, you know, are all these items Windows-based? You know, I know a lot of our field mobile applications obviously operate in iOS and Android, but any further information on?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that you saw me demonstrate today, I am on a Windows computer, but I am just using a Chrome browser. It can be done on a Mac. I have several coworkers that do use MacBooks. For items such as, you know, ArcGIS Pro, which is our desktop side, we do have instructions in our help documentation in regards to how to run ArcGIS Pro and install that in a MacBook as well. So we do provide that for you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So can the y-axis on bar charts of the comparison of drive times just shown persist at the highest scale, so the values are normalized and easier to visually compare? And I think that's flexible, right? You can adjust that on the axis analysis kind of view, correct?
I believe so, yes. If I'm understanding that correctly, yes.
Okay, and then that'd be worth an email if you want some follow-up on that data. Well, we can certainly get back to you on that.
Yeah, feel free to you know, send Mike an email and we can dive into that a little more.
Right. Can you import weather data and any predictive modeling
Absolutely.
Around fire spread based on topography? And yes, we do have some applications for that. Yeah. We certainly have partners that can provide that modeling capability for a wildland issue. But certainly, yeah, the weather data and that kind of thing for wildland, we have access to those data sets. And again, we have many that in the Living Atlas. So again, I'd encourage you to explore the Living Atlas. You can see there, Renee's got some of those data sets available just right out of ArcGIS Online. So you just do a simple search in the Living Atlas right there on the map, and you can start to add that data to it.
And you can see these are coming from NOAA directly. They utilize our platform, so they push them back out to our Living Atlas.
And so is there a library or that may have some of the required layers for solutions to function? And I know we're addressing here, so the question continues. We had to generate building footprints to get the required data. And yeah, so that's an issue too, you know, with that target hazard analysis, is identifying the size and height of the building. And we do have processes now that are getting easier and easier to use, that if you don't have that building footprint data and cannot generate the volume, you know, the height as well as length and width, that we can support that too if you need to generate that. But most of those data requirements are available on that solutions page. So, you know, each individual solution, you can dig into the requirements and understand exactly what the needs are. And a lot of them are configurable. So, you know, there might be some data that you won't use for some of these excuse me, I'm switching screens here, for some of these analysis, or you know, may not be that critical to you. But again, if it's something you're stumbling into obstacles or roadblocks with, you know, reach out to us, and we can do that. So the real-time traffic we get from several sources. And so the question, Renee, is what is the source of the real-time traffic? You can simply go to our Living Atlas and search for that, you know, even without logging in, and get the metadata and the background of what these data sources are. So yeah, if you just, you know, search for Esri Living Atlas and then just start typing in keywords when you get to the site, it can provide you that information in the background. So there's a question about connecting to their RMS and connecting to a CAD. That's, you know, kind of a case-by-case business, a case-by-case instance of depending on who your vendor is. That is something we can definitely support. A lot of the RMS agencies or RMS vendors are partners of ours. So that's certainly something we can help configure. RMS data can be pulled out manually, you know, into a database view and simply ingested in ArcGIS Online. And Renee, there's the ability to do some scripted feeds and automatic imports and Pro and some other capabilities as well, correct?
Correct, yes. And if you would like to dive into that more, feel free to shoot us an email and we can connect you with your account manager and start that conversation. We'd be happy to.
Great. We have some questions about, or a question rather, about when do we expect to have new census data in the demographic analysis tools. So some of that is in now, some of the initial data sets. The majority is going to be available in September, and that's primarily wrapped around, you know, redistricting efforts at the state level based on the new census. So that's pretty important, obviously, to get that out. So certainly by the fall, September, October, we should have access to all of that within the applications and within the Living Atlas for that matter. And do we have tutorials where we can build applications from scratch? And yes, we do. And that's something, again, we can follow up with, but we have a number of training opportunities, a lot of which are free. And you can go to our training section and they're, you know, downloadable or self-paced. And there's also instructor-led online and instructor-led in person, depending on what your agency needs are. So you can certainly access those. So again, I wanted to thank everyone for attending today and giving us some of your time. Please, again, you know, reach out, Mike_Cox@esri.com if you have any questions or any needs or need to be connected, you know, to some of the agencies and sources we discussed. And certainly if you need direct support with any of these applications or efforts, please let us know. So Renee, again, thank you for supporting, and I want to thank CPSE, and we're a proud supporter of CPSE and look forward to seeing everyone at the conference in the spring. So Cindy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Renee. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll send out an email shortly.